Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Be Your Own Best Advocate, Key Actions for People with Parkinson's and Families to Ensure Success with LSVT Treatment. And thank you for your patience in joining as we're waiting for people to join and working out a couple of technical issues. My name is Laura Gousset. I'm a physical therapist and one of the LSVT BIG training and certification faculty, as well as the Chief Clinical Officer of LSVT BIG for LSVT Global. And we were supposed to be joined by our colleague Beth Peterson, but instead, in her stead, Dr. Cynthia Fox, who is our CEO of LSVT Global and also one of the LSVT Loud and LSVT BIG training and certification faculty, is joining this webinar today also as a presenter. So in case you haven't joined one of our webinars before, I'll go through a few key logistics. Right now, all of your microphones are muted so that there's no background noise from the various audiences that you might be joining us from. At the end of the webinar, we will have a bit of time to answer your questions live. Either you can ask them out loud, or you can type in your questions at any time. On the control panel, you might see a chat box or a question box. So if you think of questions at any time, please do begin to type those in and we'll collect them and answer them in order at the end of the webinar. The majority of our time today is going to be focusing on the content of this webinar. And at the end of the webinar, there will be a survey that'll pop up. So please do take a few minutes and answer the questions. We always value your feedback as it helps us to shape our webinars in the future. So some brief information on Dr. Fox and I. I'm a physical therapist since actually 1997 and have been LSVT BIG certified since 2009, and I've had the great pleasure of working with many individuals with Parkinson's and other neurological disorders over my career and been able to help a lot of people through LSVT BIG. So it's really my pleasure to offer information to you that might be helpful for you as you go forward and look for LSVT certified clinicians for yourself or for someone you know who might benefit from these treatments. Dr. Fox has been a speech-language pathologist for a number of years and has been one of the key researchers on many of the research articles and projects related to both LSVT Loud and LSVT BIG, and she is a world-renowned expert on neuroplasticity related to Parkinson's and other neurological disorders, and she now serves as the CEO of LSVT Global. Some brief disclosures, both Cynthia and I have both financial and non-financial relationships, including a preference for LSVT Loud and LSVT BIG as treatment techniques. We are employees of LSVT Global, and Dr. Fox has ownership interest in LSVT Global as well. If you're a therapist joining us today, here's a little bit of information on this webinar in case you're able to self-report it for continuing education credit. Please note that this is not pre-approved or pre-registered for CEUs for speech, physical, or occupational therapists, but it can be used as self-reported CEU activity. If you're a speech therapist, let us know that you'd like a certificate and we can send one to you within a week or two after the webinar so that you can use that for self-reporting. If you have any questions about whether self-reporting is an option in your state, please do look to your state agency to find out that information. And you do have to attend for the full hour to earn a certificate. So these are the brief learning objectives that we have for our 1-hour webinar today. We'll be discussing the resources available to become educated on the research and framework of both LSVT Loud and LSVT BIG. We'll explain the process of obtaining a referral to begin LSVT treatment. We'll tell you how to find an LSVT certified clinician in your area, as well as some key questions that you should ask those clinicians as you begin to think about having treatment with them to ensure that you receive optimal care. And lastly, we'll discuss some methods to ensure that your treatment outcomes are maximized so that you get the best treatment results possible. So we'd love to know a little bit more about who is joining us today. We only have one polling question, and this is it. I'll open it in just a minute, but we'd like to know if you're a person with Parkinson's, a family member, friend, or caregiver, or support person of someone with Parkinson's, or even another neurological disorder. If you're a PT or OT or assistant, including students, if you're a speech language pathologist or speech therapist or assistant or a student in that profession, or maybe you're someone else. And so we welcome everyone to our webinar today. So let me just take a minute and launch this poll for you. I'll give you 20 or 30 seconds to answer. It should be a quick answer, and then I'll share those results with you. Just a couple more seconds. I think almost everyone has answered the survey, and feel free, you don't have to answer the survey. It's totally optional. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that poll, and I'll share these results with you. And you can see here that 45% are persons with Parkinson's, 9% are family members, 9% are PT or OT professionals or students, and 36% are speech language pathologist professionals or students. So thank you for submitting that survey question, that poll question, because that really helps us to tailor our talk going forward. And it's nice to see a range of both therapists and professionals joining us today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Fox, who's going to walk you through a few slides, and I'll catch up with you towards the middle to end of this webinar.
Great. Thank you, Laura, and welcome everybody. It's nice to have you here with us for this webinar today. So let's begin by talking about some general steps, and then we'll dig in a bit more into the details. How to be your own best advocate. And if you're a person with Parkinson's or family member, this is really about how you advocate for yourself. As therapists who are attending, it's ideas about how are you going to advocate for your clients, and collectively teamwork to be sure that you feel you're getting the best care possible. So general steps that we want to walk through are getting educated on treatments. And obviously today we'll be talking more specifically about LSVT treatments, but all treatment options that are out there, learning what they are and better understanding both what they are and what they are not. Getting information on referrals and what allows you to have not only success, but the most fastest and efficient path to getting set up for receiving treatment. How to find LSVT certified clinicians and what resources we have there for you. We'll explain some key questions to ask an LSVT certified clinician, and then strategies that once you perhaps start treatment, how can you really maximize your treatment outcomes? So let's begin with getting educated on treatments. How can I learn more about LSVT Loud and LSVT Big? And how can I educate my neurologist or primary care physician about the LSVT programs? We have lots of resources, and so we're going to walk through some of these to really help you learn where they live, both digitally and ways you may be able to get them in a non-digital format. So on our blog, which is blog.lsvtglobal.com, you see the link there on your slides. We have lots of different areas for finding more information. We have a section that's just on research, and this is for the research articles. So it's a whole bibliography of our published data, as well as for the articles that we're able to provide copies of that are what's called open access. We have links to those as well so that you can download those. And that's really, you go about your comfort level. We know some of you perhaps were scientists, researchers in your previous life. You like to read the research articles. That's great. Others of you may choose to have those resources to share with others, which we'll talk about in the next slide. There's monthly webinars on hot topics, just like this webinar that you're receiving today. And what's great is that there's a whole library, I believe, of 40 or more on-demand webinar topics. So if there's something of particular interest to you, let's say, for example, you're very early in your diagnoses, you know, what are the best options? Or the opposite, you've had Parkinson's disease for many, many years. Now, what's the best options? Perhaps you've had DBS surgery, things like that. We have featured blog articles, testimonials, and videos, and some of these come directly from us. A lot of them are shared, so they come from therapists, patients, families from around the world, and they want to show how LSVT has been helpful for them in their lives, LSVT Loud or LSVT Big. We also conduct a number of live seminars. So we do live 2-day training courses for a therapist, and each of those events, there's a 2-hour live seminar for people with Parkinson's where you can come and have an educational lecture and then have the opportunity to try out some of the exercises. It's not a therapy session, but it gives you a little bit of introduction to what these exercises look like. Right now, all of those are currently postponed, as many face-to-face events are currently around the world. But as soon as hopefully we get back to our ability to be out and about and interact, those will resume. On our website, we have additional resources, and the blog is linked to our website, but on our core homepage, lsvtglobal.com, we have a number of sections, a section specifically for patients and family, a section that really defines what is LSVT Big, what is LSVT Loud. We're pretty active on social media, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We share new updates, new findings, new events on those social media channels. So if you're a social media person, you can follow us there. And at any time, you can ask our experts. And so emailing any question that you may ever have to info@lsvtglobal.com, it will be filtered to the correct person and we'll be able to answer it for you. So now thinking about how can I educate my neurologist or primary care physician about LSVT programs. If you have a movement disorder neurology specialist, it's likely they know about these programs. These articles are published in their primary research journals, and so in many cases they are already quite aware. But if you have, which many people do, more of a general neurologist or primary care, they may not be aware of these programs. So sharing that link, the research articles, again, that's available. Or if you want to bring in an article, but you're not sure which one, email us and ask us. And if it's an open access article that we can provide, we can send you a copy and you can actually come into the office with that. Sometimes there needs to be clarifications and some questions or misconceptions. And so there's a difference between therapeutic protocols and exercise. They're both important, they're both very valuable, but LSVT is more than just exercise. There's an evaluation of your function, and there are very specific goals that are set that are related to your individual performance. And in addition to the exercise component of the treatment, there's carryover to functional activities, both for communication and for movement and mobility and activities of daily living. So one of the differences between, again, what we might think of exercise and therapeutic care by definition from Medicare requires skilled care. And that's the Medicare term. It's not to suggest people who aren't doing therapy are not skilled. Of course they are. But skilled care by this definition really is that it requires the training of, for example, a physical therapist, occupational or speech therapist to be able to deliver the treatments that result in the outcomes we see. Sometimes people think LSVT loud. Oh, you're just teaching people to talk loud. No problem. Or you're making them yell. That's not good. And that's not true. LSVT loud is typically the cue that we use to increase vocal loudness. Increasing vocal loudness to a level that's within normal limits. Oftentimes, and the reason why we use the cue is that the person with Parkinson's disease feels like they're talking too loud. So we say to them, talk loud. What's coming out is normal loudness. And that's a huge piece. it's similar to big as well. We don't make people move too big, but they have to feel bigger than normal. So it's healthy vocal loudness, and that is again why having a skilled speech language pathologist who knows how to help your voice get louder in a healthy way, because you can do it in a way that is unhealthy and may actually exacerbate some of your voice problems versus making them better. Will insurance pay? Absolutely yes. Now, there's always caveats, but we've had great success if insurance plans carry or cover speech, physical, and occupational therapies. LSVT treatments are simply one type of these therapies. And this is inclusive of Medicare as well. So sometimes people will say it doesn't cover it. Don't necessarily take that as an absolute. I would do a little digging around. And again, we're always here to help you wade through those insurance questions as well. Some other things that, in this region, we refer to XYZ treatment. And maybe XYZ treatment is great, but maybe you've learned or researched and you say, hey, I really feel like from what I need, LSVT loud, LSVT big are the right choice for me. Refer to the research. We have great research outcomes. You should be able to take the research in, advocate for the treatment that you feel is best for you, or as a therapist you feel is best for your person that you're treating. Information on referrals. So what do the LSVT programs entail? When, how, and why does a referral happen? What should the prescription say? Do I need a laryngeal evaluation? If I want LSVT big, should I ask for PT or OT or both? So let's walk through each one of these now. What do the LSVT programs entail? Well, they're structured, evidence-based rehabilitative treatment protocols that were developed specifically for people with Parkinson's disease. As such, they really adhere to principles of motor learning and activity-dependent neuroplasticity, ways that not only does behavior change and last, but potentially underlying neural functioning changes and last. It's not easy to make changes that last over time, and therefore these protocols are intensive. 4 individual treatment sessions a week for 4 consecutive weeks. The exercises are challenging. So as you master one level, will make them a little bit more challenging. And they're very specific and unique to the features of Parkinson's disease. So bradykinesia, slower movement, hypokinesia, smaller movement. And while the protocols are structured, they are very personalized. So we can think of it as we have our recipe for exercises and function, but what those functional activities are specific to you. It may be, for example, in communication, some of our individuals are still working. And so the most important thing is their communication at their job. In other cases, maybe individuals are retired and it's more about being able to communicate, enjoy social activities and with family and friends. Similarly, with mobility and activities, individuals still want to do or not lose the ability to do hobbies and activities like golf and hiking and gardening. Some people may really be about getting dressed in the morning and not having it take so long, or needing as much assistance. So all of those things can be personalized to you within the standardized protocol. LSVT protocols are based on 30 years of federally funded research and clinical experience. And so it does have this very rich research base for many, many years. LSVT Loud is speech therapy. It's delivered by LSVT Loud certified speech language pathologist, and LSVT Big is the physical or occupational therapy delivered by physical or occupational therapist. These are separate protocols. So you would have a course of LSVT Loud and or a course of LSVT Big. It's not a combined treatment. As I just mentioned, each treatment, but now you have it written for you, is delivered 4 consecutive days a week for 4 weeks, individual 1-hour sessions by an LSVT certified therapist, and these can be found in all practice settings. Home health, outpatient care, private practice, outpatient rehab. We have delivered it in every single possible setting. In addition, you will have daily homework practice and daily carryover assignments. So in terms of referral, when, how, and why does a referral happen? Well, we often feel that people see the best results when they begin LSVT treatments before noticing significant problems. And so, sometimes we see patients say, well, it doesn't bother me too much now, I'll wait. Rather, do the treatment now and nip it in the bud, and then be able to maintain higher level function for a longer period of time. That being said, it's never too late to start, and we have treated all stages of Parkinson's disease. How do you get a referral? Ask your doctor for referral and prescription. Why? Well, when we have a referral and prescription, it helps ensure you're receiving treatment from skilled and trained professionals, as well as it can be very useful for both insurance and reimbursement. What should the prescription say? Ideally, speech therapy for LSVT loud, physical or occupational therapy for LSVT big. The prescription should be for both an evaluation and treatment. So the 16 sessions is treatment only. Typically, there's an evaluation that's an additional separate session from that. And it also is helpful if the prescription explicitly includes the minimum treatment frequency of 4 sessions per week for 4 consecutive weeks. Do I need a laryngeal exam for LSVT lab? And this is the recommendation, not just of LSVT Global, but it's actually the recommendations from our governing body as speech language pathologists, which is the American Speech Language Hearing Association. When there are changes in vocal functioning or voice, it can be secondary to many, many causes. And we don't necessarily know the root cause without viewing the vocal folds. And that is something, that's the laryngeal exam. So we recommend highly, and example, if we're treating patients, we require to be certain there are no co-occurring causes for the changes in voice. As I mentioned, other medical conditions such as gastric reflux, vocal fold paralysis, they can also cause a hoarse, soft, or breathy voice. And those conditions may need to be managed before starting LSVT loud. So save a step and oftentimes ask your doctor to include the laryngeal exam in your prescription, or write a separate prescription for ENT that includes a laryngeal exam. And I believe, Laura, I think it's now back over to you.
All right, thank you, Cynthia. So one of the common questions that we receive from individuals with Parkinson's and people in the lay community is, really, should I ask for a PT referral or an OT referral or both? And so I think a good starting place is to talk about, what are these therapies? What defines them? What differentiates them from one another? And these are very broad, and the more you know about both physical and occupational therapy, you see them as a team that often actually addresses similar things in many different ways, yet holds their own scope of practice specific to their discipline. So these are very general definitions, but in general, for the purposes of what we do for people with Parkinson's and other neurological disorders through LSVT big, a physical therapist is going to be the one that is really the expert at addressing any challenges you have related to your mobility, your balance, your walking. Maybe you have freezing of gait issues, difficulty getting out of low chairs, recliners, getting in and out of bed, cars, etc. So we call those things gross motor activities, but they can impact all areas of life, and at home, in the community, in the workplace, etc. Occupational therapists, on the other hand, also address general mobility and transfers that you need for function in everyday life, but they really specialize in addressing what we call activities of daily living and instrumental activities of daily living, as well as fine motor skills to improve function in your life. So it could, again, be things that you do at home, at work, for leisure. But if you're having difficulties doing things like dressing, buttoning, showering, cooking, taking care of your home, taking care of your family, participating in job-related functions, participating in leisure-related functions, they're very good at problem solving these things and using LSVT Big as a way to help you be able to do those things more efficiently, more safely, more independently, and with larger amplitude as you did before you had Parkinson's. If you're a person with Parkinson's that's listening to our webinar today. Now, we know that Parkinson's affects the whole body. It affects speech and communication. It affects mobility. It affects these activities of daily living that I was just talking about. And because of that, most people with PD ultimately benefit from both physical and occupational therapy. And if they work in the same setting, in the same facility, it becomes often efficient and easy if you see each therapist 2 times a week. So you're still receiving the 4-time-a-week protocol for 4 weeks, but 2 of those days you're seeing a physical therapist really working on the things that they specialize in, and then the other 2 days a week working with the occupational therapist, really focusing on things that they specialize in. And they work together using the framework of the LSVT Big protocol to achieve those specific goals. But sometimes you might find that really, gosh, all my needs at this time fall in one area. For example, maybe you're a person that has, significant challenges with balance, walking, freezing of gait, and that is what is impacting your life most greatly at this time. And so for those types of situations, maybe a physical therapist should provide the whole 4-week protocol. On the other hand, if all the issues are related to caring for yourself, those activities of daily living, the OT can provide the entire protocol. So it's a very case-by-case situation. And not only can the physician guide you with that decision, but also the PTs and the OTs themselves can do that. So it's okay if you want to have the physician write a referral for both of them, and then you'd be evaluated by both the LSVT Big Certified PT and OT. They can talk with you individually, and then they would meet together to discuss what the best game plan is for you. Or you can just start with one, and that therapist can screen and assess if you might benefit from the other therapy as well. So there's no terribly wrong answers, and if you're ever in question about what's best for you, you can certainly reach out to us, but the best thing that you can do is just have a conversation with the therapist that you're seeing about really all your needs and goals, because they'll be familiar with whether you would need one or both therapies. So you might want to know also, where should my doctor send the referral? So on our website, we have a very convenient clinician directory where you can search for certified clinicians geographically. We've listed our website at the top, and then you'll see the giant orange rectangle at the top of our page that says Find LSVT Clinicians. There are 2 separate searches. One is for LSVT Loud and one is for LSVT Big, so because they're separate treatments. You can type in your city and state or your country. You can type in your zip code. There's a number of ways that work, and then you can really scroll through and see who might be in your area. I'd also advise you to look at their practice setting. For example, if you're quite mobile and active, you're not going to qualify for therapy through a home health agency. So do look at their practice setting to make sure that aligns with where you're at in life, and then call them to say, hey, I'm looking for LSVT therapy. Are you taking clients? Do you provide it per protocol? And is this the right practice setting for me? Again, if you have questions, contact us and we're able to help you with those questions. So some key questions you should always ask an LSVT Loud or LSVT Big clinician as you're interviewing them to see who gets the job and the pleasure of working with you. First of all, are you currently accepting patients? And if they say yes, then move on to those 4 questions. Do you deliver the gold standard dosage of LSVT Loud or LSVT Big? This is very, very important. We know that through those 30 years of research, this is an efficacious treatment when it's provided per protocol. So if they say that, yes, we do it, but we do a modified dosage, we don't do the full 4 days a week, or we don't do a full 60-minute sessions, we do 30 minutes or 45 minutes or some other variation, it's not LSVT. And we'd advise you that if they can't change and offer that, then you need to keep looking and go somewhere else. They should also provide daily carryover and homework assignments. So this is not to be, negative towards therapists, but just to really protect you so that you know how to advocate for yourself to get the best treatment possible for you. Some additional questions you might ask are, how many clinicians or clients have you treated? Now, if you're the first client, that's not necessarily a bad thing because they're going to be very, very excited to work with you. But if they have seen some additional clients, you can ask them what their typical outcomes are. And also you can ask them if you have a plan for follow-up or maintenance after therapy is done. It's very important, since PD is a chronic disease, you want someone who's with you for the long haul. So just to reiterate this, if you receive treatment that's anything other than the dosage described, the exercises or homework described, you will not be receiving LSVT, and there's no modified versions, even if your therapist tells you so. Treatment fidelity is really key. So you won't receive the benefits of treatment if you don't have it per protocol. So we really can't emphasize that enough, and we would love to help you find a clinician in your area if you need any help finding someone that does do it per protocol. There are some tips we have as well to maximize your treatment outcomes. So there's you are the biggest player if you're a person with Parkinson's or someone receiving the LSVT treatments. Following the daily homework recommendations, both during that 1 month of treatment and after, is really critical for maximizing your outcomes. So, improving your function as much as possible. And we're here to help you. Your therapist will encourage you and push you, but you really have to do your part as well. After you have completed these treatments, you might be able to join a postgraduate group called Loud for Life or Big for Life that we'll talk about in a minute. And you can expect tune-up sessions. So let's take a look at what those tune-up sessions mean and why we have those. Our model of care is very much similar to a dental model of care, where you would see the dentist, he would restore and improve your oral health, I should say, or she, by doing any dental work, doing a thorough cleaning. And that is really analogous to having that 1 month intensive dosage of LSVT to restore and optimize your function, your mobility, your communication, to really get you on the best track possible in your world and in living with Parkinson's disease. They'll also teach you tips to help keep your mouth healthy, right? So your dentist says, go home and brush and floss your teeth every day. And we say, go home and do your LSVT big exercises or your LSVT loud exercises every day to help maintain that function as best as possible. That said, we know that even if we're a superstar at brushing and flossing, there's still a little bit of plaque and tartar that can be built up over time, not as much as if we neglect our teeth, but it still does happen. And so we have to go back and get these regular cleanings every 3 to 12 months. And because Parkinson's is progressive disease, and this is not a cure for Parkinson's, we advise you to come back for a regular scheduled tune-up every 3 to 12 months. It's not repeating the full 4-week protocol over again. Generally, it's just a small number of sessions to really get you motivated again. If you've lost any type of motivation, to make sure that you're moving as big as you can be in a normal, healthy movement, and speaking in a nice, healthy voice as well. After treatment, really need to continue that daily dose of exercise. It's just as important as taking your medicine. So we say you would never leave your medicine in your pocket and expect it to work. So you take your medicine, your daily dosage, to help your Parkinson's symptoms. And on top of that, you take your daily dose of your exercise medicine. So your LSVT loud exercises and your LSVT big exercises. And that combination is going to yield you the best combination for long-term success and hopefully slowing the functional decline that you might otherwise experience as a result of Parkinson's disease. We have new postgraduate groups called Loud for Life and Big for Life, and I should say they're not so new anymore. We've had postgraduate groups for a long time, but about 4 years ago we named them Loud for Life and Big for Life. And so you can actually gather together with other individuals who have completed these treatment protocols in a group format led by an LSVT certified clinician who will lead you through the exercises and other really fun functional things. The goal of these is to really provide you another mechanism to stay motivated and maintain those gains that you work so hard for during the 1 month of treatment. They're not billed as extra or billed as therapy. They're simply cash-based community classes. Usually there's a nominal fee for them. Sometimes they meet once a week, sometimes twice a week, sometimes a bit less often. They're not necessarily held in a clinic or a hospital. They could be in a community center. And you can find these groups also through that same clinician directory. So if you remember that big orange button at the top, you'd go to that button, start by searching for LSVT Loud, and then as you scroll through, you can find people that have this extra designation of being a Loud for Life provider if they're an LSVT Loud clinician, or a Big for Life provider if they're an LSVT Big clinician. If you see that, then you can reach out to that person to say, hey, are you currently offering a Loud for Life or Big for Life group in your area? Can I join it? Can I get some information on it? And they're really, really fun. I'd highly encourage that you look into this if you have gone through the LSVT programs. The tune-up sessions typically begin 6 months post-treatment. In some cases, they're a bit sooner. Go back to the slide. Some cases a bit longer than that. Feel free to call your clinician or email them to say, hey, is it time for a tune-up? Or they may contact you as well. Or this may be pre-scheduled. So at the last visit of LSVT, they might say, hey, let's get that next tune-up session on the books. You probably will need a new referral. You can facilitate that, or your therapist can facilitate getting that new referral as well. Usually it's just a quick phone call or email to your referring physician. Tune-ups are legitimate reimbursable care. So you might wonder, is Medicare or my insurance going to pay for it? And yes, and Medicare in particular says that maintenance care is reimbursable for people with degenerative diseases. So in summary, just a few points here before we open it up for questions. We want you to know that there are many resources available to help you learn more about LSVT Loud and LSVT Big, and we hope that you have maybe downloaded the handout that's attached to this webinar today so that you can save these slides and have that information that we've presented today. We'd really encourage you to discuss the treatments with your doctor and seek a referral. They might not know about it, and you might be the one to inform them about LSVT, and through that end up helping other clients in the future who might benefit from these treatments. You can easily use the clinician directory to find LSVT certified clinicians in your area, and you're now armed with the tools you need to ask critical questions of potential LSVT clinicians to ensure that you get the best care and the best outcomes. And that's really what we want for you. Follow that optimal wellness model to ensure success during treatment and beyond. And really, we mean this, that if you are a person with Parkinson's or another disorder that would benefit from these treatments, you deserve the care and you are worth the effort. And I'll speak for myself and Dr. Fox as therapists ourselves. It's the most rewarding thing that we can ever imagine as therapists, to help improve function, improve quality of life for people that receive these treatments. So before we go to questions, just a quick reminder that we have a webinar coming up next month. And by the way, it's Parkinson's Awareness Month and it's Occupational Therapy Awareness Month as well. So this is more of an OT topic. We're going to be talking about increasing amplitude of movements, improving fine motor skills through LSVT Big. So if you're interested in learning how LSVT Big can be used to help things like buttoning or writing, putting on makeup, putting in earrings, those small movements, please join us for our webinar next month. It's going to be same time and date. It'll be on a Wednesday, April 22nd from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And so now we would love to take a few minutes and answer any questions that you have. These are the 3 ways that you can ask questions. You'll see on your control panel, there's a question box. You can certainly type in your question and as soon as you submit it, one of us will read it out loud and answer your question. The second way is by raising your hand. On the left side of your control panel, you'll see a little hand icon. If you raise that, we'll take note. We'll call out your name so that you know that it's your turn. Just make sure that your microphone on your computer is also unmuted so that we can hear you. If you think of a question later or want to ask a question more privately, that's okay too. You can always email us at info@lsvtglobal.com and we will send your question to one of our faculty or one of our experts. So with that, I'm just going to see if there's any questions here. And let me just go to our questions. Right now, I don't think we have any, but I will take a minute to just pause and let people type in questions. And Cynthia, can you think of any FAQs as I was speaking that came up?
You know, one thing I just wanted to mention, and this was some information we shared with all of our LSVT certified clinicians last night. We're working on some messaging. You know, now is a good time, I think, to spend learning and educating more. A lot of us are going to be home. We may not be able to get out. As we said, we have a wealth of information on our website. We're also offering some resources, both for clinicians and for people with Parkinson's disease. There are people out there who maybe have had treatment. There's concerns about what if I'd started treatment and it gets interrupted. So we do have our LSVT homework helper videos that can be either streaming or downloaded, and we've cut the cost of those by 40%. So the streaming videos are now $9 for a whole year, or the download is $17 and you have it forever. So those are available on Vimeo, vimeo.com, and you can just search for LSVT videos and locate those there. We'll also be offering for some free online classes for LSVT Loud or LSVT Big graduates. We're in the process of getting our formatting set up for those, and we'll be posting information about those through our social media channels as soon as they are there. So we're trying to be as reactive and supportive as we can, recognizing, you know, traditional clinical care is in some cases grinding to a halt, and how can we utilize the power of technology to reach out to individuals, to not have people feel isolated, to keep you exercising, keep you moving, keep you communicating. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that information.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. So I don't see that any questions have come in, and we're near the top of our hour. So I just wanted to tell you thank you. We always appreciate it when people join our webinars. We hope this information was helpful to you. This webinar will be recorded, so if you want to go back and listen to it or share it with others who you might think would benefit from it, in a couple of days it'll be posted on our blog under the on-demand webinars. So again, have a great day. Please stay healthy, whoever you are joining us, and we wish you all the best. See you in April.